I died with my father's voice echoing in my ears, a final gut punch of disappointment. Allison, you've shamed us all. The bullet from my own service pistol, rigged by the bastard I trusted most, ripped through my temple in that godforsaken motel room off Quantico, the Chesapeake Bay mocking me with its indifferent waves outside the window. Betrayal tasted like salt and copper, my last breath a curse on the man who'd played me for a fool, turning my career into a sacrificial lamb for his climb up the ladder. But death? It was just the universe's sick joke, a cosmic do-over that slapped me back into my 32-year-old body, heart pounding like a jackhammer in the middle of a staff meeting at the Pentagon, 3 years before the end. The fluorescent hum, the stale coffee scent, the droning voice of Captain Elias Grant, my mentor, my betrayer, cut off mid-sentence as I gasped, clutching the table. Eyes turned to me, but all I could see was the noose tightening around my future, invisible but ironclad. This time I wouldn't hang. Washington, D.C. in 2015 was a pressure cooker of egos and secrets, the kind of place where ambition sharpened knives in the dark. I was Lieutenant Commander Allison Hayes, Golden Girl of the Navy's Cyber Warfare Division, fresh off a stint in Bahrain where I'd cracked an Iranian encryption that saved a carrier group from a drone swarm. Dad, Rear Admiral Thomas Hayes, retired, had pinned my bars himself, his grizzled face cracking a rare smile. "Make us proud, kid," he'd growled, the weight of 3 generations of Hayes sailors on his shoulders. Mom was long gone, cancer claiming her when I was 10, leaving me with a man who measured love in salutes and strategy sessions. Elias Grant was the wild card, charismatic as hell, with that Boston accent that could charm a cobra. He'd plucked me from the Academy's middling ranks and molded me into his protege. Late nights in the war room, his hand lingering a beat too long on my shoulder, whispers of, "You're the future, Allie." I bought it hook, line, and sinker. Hell, I even slept with him once after a bourbon-fueled briefing, convincing myself it was just the job's adrenaline. But that motel room in 2018, that was the payoff. Me, drugged and disgraced, suicide, note forged in my handwriting, confessing to selling secrets to the Chinese. Elias walked away with my stars, my legacy, and Dad's dying rasp of shame as he disowned me in absentia. Now, back in 15, I stared at him across the conference table, his salt and pepper hair slicked back, that predatory glint in his eye as he pitched Project Aegis, a black-budget op to embed malware in Russian subs via undersea cables. "Allison, your thoughts?" he asked, voice smooth as oiled leather. My pulse thundered. I could smell the lie on him already, the way his pitch twisted facts to bury the real hook. Aegis wasn't defense. It was provocation, a false flag to escalate tensions, with me as the fall guy if it blew up. In my first life, I'd greenlit it, blind faith leading to a cyber skirmish that exposed everything, and me. "I think it's suicide," I said, voice steady despite the vertigo of déjà vu. The room froze. Elias's smile faltered, just a twitch, but I caught it. "Explain, Commander." I leaned forward, channeling every ounce of the Admiral I'd become in the grave. "The cables are too vulnerable. One leak, and we're handing Putin a gift-wrapped excuse for war. We need redundancies. Offshore proxies, not direct embeds." Murmurs rippled. Elias recovered, chuckling. "Bold Hayes. But boldness wins wars." "Bullshit. Boldness got me killed." That night, in my cramped Alexandria apartment overlooking the Potomac, I cracked open the bottle of Glenfiddich Dad sent for my last promotion. The river glittered like fool's gold under the Beltway lights, a reminder that D.C. was all facade, marble monuments hiding the rot. I pulled out my old laptop, the one with the hidden partition I'd forgotten about in the first go-round. Fingers flying, I mirrored Elias's Aegis files from the secure server, backdoors I'd installed as a joke, never thinking I'd need them for this. The docs spilled out, not just malware code, but orders to stage a Russian hack on U.S. banks, time to Aegis activation. Frame job on steroids, with my access logs doctored to point the finger at me. Elias wasn't just ambitious. He was a traitor, feeding intel to Moscow for a post-retirement dacha on the Black Sea. Rage boiled, hot and clarifying. In my past life, I'd loved him, stupidly, desperately, enough to ignore the red flags. The unexplained trips to Vienna, the burner phones, The way he'd gaslight me after our fling. You're paranoid, Allie. Trust me. Trust. The words soured like milk. Now I'd weaponize it. Step 1. Build an armor of allies. I started with Sarah Klein, my XO from Bahrain, a no-nonsense cryptologist with a chip on her shoulder the size of Texas. Over beers at the Dubliner, I floated hypotheticals. What if your CO was playing both sides? Her eyes narrowed over her pint. I'd bury him. By week's end, she was in, eyes gleaming with the thrill of the hunt. Dad was trickier. I drove up to his Annapolis rancher the next weekend, the Chesapeake Bridge spanning like a steel scar. He was on the porch, pipe in hand, staring at the bay where he'd commanded destroyers in Nam. Allison, he grunted, not rising. The chill was there, a preview of the rift to come. In my timeline, this was where it started fraying, my reckless choices clashing with his by-the-book code. Dad, I need your read on Grant. I slid into the rocker beside him, the wood creaking like old bones. He puffed, smoke curling. Elias? Solid. What? I fed him crumbs. Whispers of Aegis irregularities. His jaw tightened. Watch your step, girl. Navy eats its young. But I was done being the meal. Over the next months, I played the long game, documenting every Elias move, from his consulting gigs to the offshore accounts blooming like weeds in Cayman ledgers. Sarah hacked his emails, with my plausible deniability, uncovering the Vienna meets, handoffs to a Kremlin cutout named Victor. The betrayal cut deeper than the bullet. He'd used me as cover, my clean rep laundering his dirt. And the secret? Buried under Aegis was Operation Clean Slate, a Navy scandal from 12, a botched SEAL raid in Yemen that killed civilians, pinned on faulty intel. Elias had suppressed it, trading silence for Russian favors. I'd taken the heat in my first life, testifying under duress, my career the scapegoat. Controversy brewed when I leaked a sanitized Aegis memo to the Post, an anonymous tip, framed as whistleblowing. Navy cyber op risks escalation, the headline screamed. Elias cornered me in the halls. You trying to sink us, Hayes? His breath was mint over malice. Just doing my job, sir. The fallout was electric, congressional hearings, Jag sniffing around. Dad called, voice thunder. What the hell are you stirring? I lied smooth, protecting the service. But inside, the hook twisted. This was Revenge's first cut, drawing blood without a blade. By spring 16, the new side worn in 18 was mine to tighten. I pitched my counter-op to the brass, Project Sentinel, a defensive net mirroring Aegis but with kill switches and audits. They bit, Admiral Voss, Elias's rival, championing it. Elias seethed, his smiles turning to snarls in private. You're playing with fire, Allie. Our old intimacy curdled into something feral. He'd corner me after hours, hand on my arm like a vice. Remember who made you. I wrenched free, voice ice. And who'll unmake you? His eyes widened, recognition of the shift, the woman who'd risen from her own ashes. The tension coiled like a spring. Sarah and I built the trap, falsified logs routing Elias's Vienna comms through my Sentinel prototype, making it look like he'd compromised it. Risky as hell. If it backfired, I'd be the traitor. Controversial? Hell yes. Leaking to the press was one thing. Engineering a sting that could topple a captain verged on mutiny. Dad found out piecemeal, his calls turning frantic. Stand down, Allison. This ain't how Hayes fight. But I was fighting, for the me he'd disowned in a grave, for the motherless girl who'd saluted her way to respect. Climax hit in July, a sweltering DC night at the Navy Yard. Elias summoned me to his office, the door locked, bourbon poured. Truce. He slid a glass over, eyes hooded. Deja vu slammed me, the same setup as the motel, down to the flickering desk lamp. In my past, this was the setup, spiked drink, planted gun. My hand trembled, but I raised the glass. To old times. We drank. His laced mine. I knew from the faint almond tang. But I'd palmed the pill from Sarah, antidote in my cheek, swapped on the toast. He lunged then, words spilling venom. You think you're clever? Aegis was my ticket out. Russia's paying top dollar to bury Clean Slate forever. Confession on tape, hidden in my cufflink. I dodged, chair crashing. It's over, Elias. Jag's outside. The door burst. Voss, Sarah, feds in tow. Elias froze, then lunged for the gun in his drawer. Shot rang out. Mine, center mass. Self-defense, but the blood on my hands felt like fate's ink. The twist came at the funeral, rain lashing Arlington like judgment. Elias's widow wept, but I stood dry-eyed among the brass. Dad at my elbow, reconciled in the chaos, his pride a grudging nod. General Harlan, Voss's boss, pinned the stars. Rear Admiral Hayes, 30 years of service. Wait, 30? I was 35. The math didn't add. Whispers rippled. Sarah pulled me aside. Your Sentinel? It wasn't just defense. The code you wrote. It evolved, cracked a Chinese backdoor no one knew about. Saved the grid last week. Unseen heroics, buried in the noise. But as the general spoke, Elias's ghost lingered in my ear. You were always the better player. Happy ending? Maybe. Or just the start of a lonelier war. Dad thought I was done. Then General said, Rear Admiral Hayes, 30 years of service, Part 2. The promotion ceremony blurred into a haze of handshakes and hollow congratulations. The Arlington grass slick under my dress blues like a promise of unsteady ground. Dad gripped my arm as we walked from the grave. Elias's, not mine. His voice a gravel whisper. You did what you had to, Allie. But God help me. I thought you were done for. His eyes, faded blue like faded glory, held the ghost of that disownment he'd uttered over my suicide note. In this loop, he'd never said it, but the echo lingered, a scar I wore under the stars. Not yet, Dad, I murmured, the Potomac's distant churn a siren's call to deeper waters. Back in D.C., the fallout from the sting rippled like a depth charge. Jag cleared me, self-defense, ironclad with the tape. But the whispers? They were vipers in the vents. Hayes took down her own mentor. Cold bitch. Sarah laughed it off over takeout foe in her Georgetown walk-up, chopsticks clacking. Let him talk. You just flipped the script on a traitor. She was my anchor now, the sister I'd never had, her Texas drawl cutting through the bullshit. But sleep? It evaded me, nightmares splicing timelines, the bullets whine, Elias's laugh morphing into Dad's disapproval. Revenge tasted sweet at first, victory scotch neat, but it soured, leaving me hollow, staring at ceiling fans that spun like conspiracy wheels. The buried secret clawed its way up next. Clean slate wasn't just Elias's albatross, it was a hydra, digging through redacted files in my new Admiral's office. Perks of the bump. I uncovered layers. The Yemen raid wasn't botched intel, it was deliberate. Elias hadn't suppressed it alone. Brass higher up, including a 3-star named Caldwell, had greenlit civilian risks to test experimental drones. Cover-up cash flowed to Moscow via Elias, but the strings led to campaign donors, defense contractors cozy with senators. My stomach nodded. I'd suffered for this in life one. Demoted, disgraced, testifying in shadows while they golfed at Augusta. Now, I had leverage, but wielding it meant torching the house I lived in. Controversial decisions piled like storm clouds. First, I authorized Sarah to leak clean slate docs to WikiLeaks, sanitized, no names, but enough to ignite hearings. This could end us, she warned, fingers hovering over upload. Worth it, I said, the word steel in my throat. The drop hit like a monsoon. Navy cover-up in Yemen, dozens dead. Protests erupted outside the capital, vets in wheelchairs chaining to gates, screaming, justice for the fallen. Dad called from Annapolis, voice cracking. Allison, you're painting a target on your back. Hayes don't burn bridges, they build fleets. But bridges to what? A system that had framed me twice over? Elias's widow, Lena, became the wild card. She'd shown at the funeral, veiled like a shroud, but cornered me after. He loved you, you know. Said you were his legacy. Lies, but her eyes, hollow, haunted, stirred pity. Over coffee at a foggy bottom dive, she spilled. Burner phones, late nights, his rants about the machine eating us alive. She'd known fragments, ignored them for the lifestyle. Did he ever mention Victor? I probed, casual. Her nod was a crack, some Russian contact. Business. Bingo. I fed her just enough, Elias's treason, to turn her grief weaponized into testimony. Controversial? Hell, using a widow as bait skirted ethics boards, but in D.C., morality was the first casualty. Tensions escalated when Caldwell summoned me to his McLean estate, a sprawling McMansion with Potomac views that screamed ill-gotten gains. He was old money Navy, silver fox with a handshake like a contract. Admiral Hayes, he drawled over brandy snifters, your zeal is noted, but clean slate. Ancient history. His eyes bored in, the threat velvet-gloved. Elias was a loose end. You tied it neatly. I sipped, steady. Loose ends unravel, sir. Like Yemen. His laugh was bark. Careful, girl. Promotions aren't guarantees. Walking out, my skin crawled. He'd greenlit my first death, indirectly, by backing Elias's rise. The revenge arc twisted inward then, a mirror to my soul. I started seeing Elias everywhere. In the curve of a junior officer's jaw, the lilt of a briefing voice. Paranoia? Maybe. Or wisdom bought in blood. Sarah noticed, pulling me for runs along the mall. Cherry blossoms mocking our sweat. You're carrying him, Allie. Let it go. But letting go meant forgiving the me who'd trusted, the girl who'd bent for a man's approval. No. I'd forge ahead, controversial be damned. Summer 17 brought the storm. Hearings convened in the Dirksen Senate office building, fluorescent hell under C-SPAN lights. I testified first, voice level as I laid out clean slate. Drone strikes on a wedding, 14 dead, intel fudged for advancements. Senators blustered, hawks defending necessary risks, doves baying for blood. Caldwell stonewalled, but Lena's appearance shattered the room. Sobbing through logs of Elias's calls, her voice breaking on, he said they'd kill him if he talked. The twist? She dropped the bomb. Caldwell's signature on a memo authorizing Elias's retirement package, code for payoff. Gasps echoed. Dad watched from home, texting. Proud. Terrified. But controversy peaked when I went rogue. Post-hearing, feds raided Caldwell's estate. Tip from me, anonymous. They found servers. Not just clean slate, but ties to election meddling, Russian bots boosting defense bills. The Post dubbed it Admiral's Reckoning. Protests swelled, vets clashing with cops on Pennsylvania Avenue. Tear gas blooming like funeral flowers. I was the face, hero to some, witch hunter to others. Death threats piled in my inbox. Traitor's daughter gets what's coming. Dad barricaded his door, voice fierce on the line. Come home, Allie. This ain't worth it. Was it? The climax brewed in a backroom at the Hay Adams. Voss pulling strings for a off-books meet. Caldwell, cornered, offered a deal. Resigned quietly. Pin it on Elias's ghost, and I'd sail to 4 stars. For the good of the service, he purred. My laugh was sharp. Service? Or your slush fund? I activated the recorder, Sarah's bug in the chandelier. His mask slipped. You think you're clean, Hayes? That's suicide. I pulled strings to make it stick. Your old man begged me to bury it. Rage ignited, pure kerosene. I stood, voice thunder. Begged? He disowned me. Caldwell smirked. Check the logs. Thomas Hayes signed off, loyalty over blood. The betrayal doubled, a knife to the gut. Dad, complicit? I stormed out, rain sheeting the streets, hailing a cab to Annapolis. He met me on the porch, pipe unlit, face ashen. Allison. I shoved the transcript printout at him. You knew. About Elias. About me. His shoulders sagged, decades crumbling. Caldwell threatened the family. Your career, my pension. I thought it was protection. Lies or love. The line blurred. We argued till dawn, voices raw over the bay. His regrets, my fury, the Hayes Code fracturing like old hull plating. I failed you, he admitted, tears carving tracks. Twice. Forgiveness? Not yet. But understanding, a fragile bridge. Back in D.C., I leaked Caldwell's offer. The empire toppled, arrests at dawn, headlines screaming, Navy scandal reaches Pentagon peak. Voss promoted me interim, but the cost? Isolation. Sarah transferred out, too hot, cowgirl, leaving voicemails of solidarity. Lena vanished to Florida, a ghost with a payout. And Dad? He visited, awkward dinners at founding farmers, rebuilding over crab cakes and silences. By fall, the dust settled. Clean slate inquiries dragged, but reforms stuck, audit trails, whistleblower shields. Me? Rear Admiral Hayes, 30 years in, twisted math from inherited service credits, staring at the Potomac from my balcony. Victory, but Pyrrhic. The twist lingered. Dad's complicity humanized him, but scarred us. Revenge closed one circle, opened another, against the machine itself. Dad thought I was done. Then General said, Rear Admiral Hayes, 30 years of service, Part 3. Winter 17 clamped D.C. in ice. The National Mall, a frozen tableau of monuments to men who'd bent history without breaking. I stood at attention in the East Room. White House chandeliers dripping light like melting resolve as the president pinned the Distinguished Service Medal. Flashbulbs popped, a circus of sycophants clapping for the Navy's savior. But inside, the weight pressed. 30 years of service, the general had intoned at Arlington, folding timelines like origami. It wasn't just credits. It was karma's ledger, balancing my borrowed years against the blood I'd spilled. Dad sat front row, uniformed up, his salute crisp, but eyes haunted. We'd patched the rift, barely, over Thanksgiving turkey and truths too bitter to swallow. I was wrong, he'd said, carving the bird. About Elias. About you. I'd nodded, fork scraping plate. Forgiveness was a slow thaw. Post-medal, the real war began, navigating the viper pit as a marked woman. Promotions came with barbs, whispers of Hayes the Hun, files accidentally leaked painting me as ambitious to a fault. Sarah checked in from her San Diego desk, voice crackling over secure line. Heard your persona non grata at the O Club. Need backup. I chuckled, alone in my Crystal City condo, city lights mocking isolation. Nah, just the price of the ticket. But lies. Nights blurred into bourbon and briefings, the ghost of Elias in every shadow, his betrayal a blueprint for distrust. I'd avenged my death, toppled Caldwell's cabal, but the secret gnawed. Clean slates full rod extended to black sites in Diego Garcia, renditions funneled through Russian proxies. Elias was the pawn, the board was rigged higher. Controversy dogged me like a tailwind. Spring 18 brought the ethics probe. Anonymous tip claiming I'd fabricated the sting, planted the bug. Jag grilled me in a windowless room, fluorescent buzz like angry hornets. Admiral Hayes, did you coerce Mrs. Grant? The widow's name hung heavy. She'd recanted under pressure, fleeing to witness protection. I stared down the panel, voice even. She spoke truth. Check the timestamps. Dad testified on my behalf, hobbling in on a cane, age catching up, his words a cannonade. Allison Hayes is the finest officer I've known. If that's treason, court-martial me too. The room shifted, probes fizzled. But the cost? His health cratered, a mild stroke sidelining him to assisted living. Guilt twisted like barbed wire. Your fight's mine, he'd rasped from the hospital. Finish it. The antagonist evolved then, not a man, but the system. I pitched Global Shield to Congress, a unified cyber defense, open-source audits to prevent another clean slate. Hearings were blood sport, senators grandstanding, contractors lobbying death threats via aides. One night, en route to a Hill briefing, my driver swerved. Black SUV ramming us off the GW Parkway, guardrail crumpling like tin. I crawled from the wreck, ribs cracked, tasting diesel and destiny. No accident, tires slashed, brakes cut. Retaliation from the old guard, faceless but furious. Sarah flew in, eyes blazing. Who? I wheezed, ambulance sirens wailing. The machine. Recovery was a crucible. PT in Bethesda, mirrors showing bruises blooming like accusations. Dad visited, smuggling crab balls, his jokes forced. Remember when you were knee-high, saluting the goldfish? Laughter hurt, but healed. There, piecing Humpty together, the deeper betrayal surfaced. Mom's cancer. Dad confessed over lukewarm coffee, radiation withheld in a VA trial, botched for data. Navy cover-up, buried with her. I signed the waiver, he admitted, voice dust. For the service. The Hayes curse, loyalty is noose. Rage reignited. Not at him, but the edifice. We're ending it, I vowed. He squeezed my hand. Together. Climax crested in October, a joint session at the Capitol. Global Shield on the docket, opposition stacked. Defense hawks decrying weakness, lobbyists flooding halls with AstroTurf emails. I testified last, podium like a doc. Gentlemen and ladies, I nodded to the sole female senator. We've lost 200 souls to cyber shadows since Aegis. Clean slate? That's the tip. Shield builds walls, not graves. Questions flew. Cost? Vulnerabilities? Then the bomb, from a freshman rep, greased by contractors. Admiral, sources say you staged Grant's death. Treason. The room detonated, gavels pounding. I locked eyes with the accuser, seeing Caldwell's ghost in his smirk. Sources lie, Congressman. Like the ones that killed my mother. Gasps. I'd vowed silence on Mom. But the loop demanded truth. Raw. Controversial. Dad, in the gallery, went white. The chair called recess. Feds swarmed. Twist. The sources traced to a server in my old office, planted, but my Sentinel code had evolved again, watermarking the hack to a rival Admiral's IP. Boomerang. Hearings adjourned in chaos, arrests rolling by dawn. Global Shield passed 51 to 49, a razor victory. But the real twist waited in the Oval. The president, pre-election jitters, summoned me post-passage. Marine One rotors thumped outside as he paced, tie loose. Hayes, you just saved my ass, and tanked half the donors. His grin was wolfish. What's your price? I stood tall, ribs aching echo. Reform. Full audit on VA trials. Starting with 89. Mom's year. He nodded. Deal sealed. Walking out, the south lawn gleamed. Hope, fragile as spring. Ending? No tidy bow. Dad passed that winter, peaceful in Annapolis, Bay View eternal. At the service, I saluted his urn, whispering, 30 years wasn't enough. The general's words echoed. My service, his legacy merged. Sarah rose to captain, toasting me and Diego, to do-overs. Lena wrote once, he was broken. You fixed what you could. Revenge's arc closed, but life's coiled on. Controversial decisions etching lines on my face. Tensions easing into resolve. Deceased machine ground, but I'd jammed the gears. Rear Admiral Allison Hayes. Not done, just beginning. The Potomac flowed on, indifferent witness to the woman who drowned and risen, ready for the next tide.